Chapter 1 is told through the eyes of a man named Garrett, a young corporate professional in search for a sense of purpose and possibility. Less than a month ago, I had never even heard of Okablaya. Yet, here I was, on a plane, headed to this mysterious island, with only one duffel bag of belongings, and a very foggy idea of what lay ahead. What is Okablaya? Well, I'm still not entirely sure, but from what I've been told, it sounds like Okablaya is sort of the pinnacle of human civilization. They refer to themselves as a tribe society, which apparently started as some sort of super tribe or something that banded together and fled the Americas during the colonization era. According to the little information I've gotten so far, they supposedly live in total harmony with one another and with nature, virtually disease-free and with almost no crime. Apparently, peace and prosperity is the norm on this island. The residents make use of most of the same technologies that we do, but still abide by the ancient principles that the country was founded on centuries ago. Like a perfect balance of past traditions and future technology, so it seems. In the materials I was provided, they repeatedly mentioned their alignment with the timeless, they used that word a lot, universal laws of nature. I was also told I would be learning how this carries over into their unique systems of politics, education, medicine, law enforcement, and the like. One person on the interview team stated it simply: we are the living proof of what Western civilization could be. To say I'm not sold on any of this would be an understatement, but I must admit that I'm intrigued. What really grabbed my attention was the fact that this civilization operates in secrecy, completely isolated from the outside world. Off-map was the term they used. You can't find anything about them on the internet, no videos on YouTube, no Wikipedia page. You can't travel there without being invited on a private charter like the one I'm on now. And while I'm there, I can't have any contact with the outside world or share my exact whereabouts. In fact, I don't even know the exact whereabouts. They were adamant about keeping the location completely confidential, because in their own words, the advancement of our civilization is not despite being isolated from Western culture, it's because of our isolation from Western culture. I'm a born skeptic, always have been, so naturally I found this secret society idea a little hard to believe. Nevertheless, I'm on my way, and there's no turning back now. I'll be landing in Okablaya soon, and for about a week, I'll be learning all about what allegedly makes this place so special. I recently promised myself I would start being more open to new things and take some chances, and this trip feels like a head-first dive into something new and exciting. 2 words that wouldn't be used to describe much else in my life. The uncertainty of it all has been overwhelming these past few weeks, and I've lost count of how many times I've almost talked myself out of accepting this offer. But now that all is said and done, I'd say I'm roughly 30% excited and 70% terrified. But that was enough to get me on this plane. And what I do know is that it somehow feels right. I can't really explain why I feel this way. And I definitely wouldn't be able to logically convince someone that this was a good idea. But I just have something inside that's pushing me to take this trip. Or maybe it's actually pulling me. I don't really know. I purposely avoided trying to make sense of the decision on paper because I know damn well that on paper, it doesn't make any sense at all. And for once, I wasn't going to let that get in the way. My gut was saying go for it. But I knew if I spent too much time thinking about it, I would get all scared and talk myself out of it. So I kind of just said, fuck it, I'm in. So off I go to a land of supposed peace and prosperity, like something out of a movie. Again, I'm skeptical for obvious reasons, but the only thing harder to believe than this hidden promised land is how I ended up getting invited on this trip in the first place. You ready for this? I found it on an Instagram ad. I stumbled on the ad which read, "Win a free trip to exotic private island and experience the lifestyle you've always dreamed of." The pictures looked beautiful, and I didn't need to pay to enter the sweepstakes or share anything other than my email address, so I figured there was no harm in filling out the form. I was informed that the winners would be selected first by chance and then filtered with a series of thorough interviews. To be honest, I forgot all about it until I received the email a few weeks later stating that I had been selected for an interview. I rolled my eyes and proceeded with tremendous skepticism, expecting at any moment or after any click to be asked for my credit card information, or there to be some kind of catch. But it never came. So I accepted the invitation to the first interview. It was a virtual conference with a panel of representatives from Okablaya. I was surprised by just about everything I experienced, from the thorough resources to the professional staff. When the first call ended, I was still a long way from sold, but when they invited me to the next one, I accepted again, and then again and again until I was finally selected for the group. With each stage of the interview process, I was given a bit more detail about what to expect on Okablaya. The information sort of trickled out as the staff got to know me, but in a manner that was obviously well thought out on their end. It was clear they were going to give me the bare minimum of what I needed to know and no more. How they explained the trip changed quite a bit along the way, and the idea that I had in my own head morphed several times in the process. At first, I was picturing a vacation getaway. I mean, that is what I signed up for. Then after the first interview, it started sounding like some kind of health retreat, like one of those yoga meditation things. Not usually my kind of thing, but like I said, I'm trying to be more open-minded and thought maybe it would be a good first step for me into something more spiritual. But in the end, I learned that this trip was really more like an orientation. It's a week-long immersion that doubles as a tryout for a training program, like an intense self-transformation program. According to the staff, by the end of this first week, it would be clear as to whether or not I should move on to that next stage. I know. This whole thing sounds ridiculous. From the outside, I can see why it seems crazy that I would even keep taking these interviews, no less actually accept the opportunity. But everyone I spoke with was extremely professional, and the people on the interview panel seemed authentic, knowledgeable, and most of all, very passionate about this program they referred to as Project Delphinius. They asked me a lot of questions about my past and my vision for the future, and it was clear that they were actually being selective and not just taking anyone. It felt good to be noticed, and it was exciting to keep moving through each stage of the interview. Plus, it really was free. So if this was some sort of scam, it wasn't a very good one. There were some questions they wouldn't even answer, though, and every time I pressed for more information, they would give me a sort of vague, generic response. Some variation of, "This will all be explained during orientation at exactly the right time in exactly the right order," was repeated to me more times than I can count. Leading in and in between interviews, I was given webinars to watch, a bunch of reading, and then after sorting through all the information, I had a chance to ask questions of my own. During the second interview, I asked why it was called Project Delphinius. Fair question, right? One of the gentlemen on the panel responded, "Delphinius means dolphin. As waterborne mammals, dolphins are intermediaries between land and sea. They represent the conduction of harmony and balance between two different worlds." Clearly, this was a well thought out response, and obviously a response he had given many times before, but it didn't help me actually understand at all. What does any of that have to do with this trip? Harmony and balance between two worlds? I don't get it. Whatever though, the name of the project doesn't matter to me too much. What I really couldn't get past was the whole idea of a secret society. I challenged the panel on that point during my last interview. How is that possible? Are you trying to tell me that the CIA and US military don't know about you guys and what you're doing? Everyone on the panel chuckled before one of the women responded, "Trust me, they don't want you to know about us as much as we don't want you to know about us." "They don't want anyone getting any kind of ideas," a man chimed in. "It's actually great because we don't even have to scrub ourselves from the internet. They do it for us," he continued, the corners of his mouth turning up into a sly smirk. "They leave us alone as long as we keep to ourselves
and don't try to stop the wheels of the military-industrial machine from turning.
And you've agreed not to do that? I asked inquisitively, feeling my own eyebrows raised at the question. There was a little bit of a pause. They each looked at each other as if they wanted the other one to answer. Finally, the same woman who answered my original question spoke up. It's more of an unspoken agreement, she answered. Point is, they happily keep us off the radar of anyone in Western culture who might be inspired by our way of life. And we're more than okay with that. A third person, an elderly gentleman that appeared to be of native descent, finished the thought by saying, most importantly, the people of Okablaya understand the importance of protecting our traditions and honoring our lineage. They know the risks of Western influence on our culture and protect our privacy at all costs. So basically, the people of Okablaya don't want anyone knowing about them, and the powers that be don't want anyone to know about them. That answer made enough sense to me, and it seems to work out well enough for both parties. But later on, I started thinking about it a little bit more. If that's the case, then why bring some of us in for this project? Delphinius is obviously a high priority for them. Between the staff I've met so far, the materials they provided me, and this private plane that I'm on right now, there's clearly a significant budget funding the project and no shortage of manpower devoted to it. In other words, they are serious about this project, and clearly the outcome matters to them. To be honest, I think this mystery more than anything is what drove me to take the chance. The country is seemingly perfect as it is, so why all this effort and energy to bring regular people to your isolated island and teach us how you do it? Especially if we aren't even allowed to talk about it afterwards. There has to be more to the story. They seem to give me just enough information needed to feel comfortable with the idea of traveling to a remote island while maintaining my extreme curiosity and honestly some level of confusion about the Okablaya culture and Project Delphinius itself. Anytime I pressed the panel of one of my many questions with the hopes of getting some further information, I was hit with that same line of, you'll get all the information you need at exactly the right time, in exactly the right order, yada yada. Not very reassuring, I know, but I still felt like I could trust them. My family, they didn't feel the same. I was told during the interview process that I could not share any information about Project Delphinius to anyone outside of my immediate family, or I would be disqualified from the program. So, I told my parents and siblings, and no one else. Naturally, they think I'm insane, claiming that I'm going to either get A, scammed out of my life savings, or B, get abducted. And honestly, I can't say I blame them. Imagine their reaction when I told them I want a free trip to a beautiful island that no one has ever heard of, that I found through an Instagram ad with extremely vague details on what to expect during my stay. Wouldn't you think I was delusional too? To be honest, I actually agree with my family when they say something doesn't add up. But I have a little more confidence than they do that I'm not going to end up a victim of some evil scheme. I actually think the opposite. It's hard to pinpoint, but I have a feeling that there's something here for me. What exactly that something is, I'm not sure, but I feel it. I'm nervous and frightened, possibly more than I've ever been about anything else in my life to this point. But despite the fear, I'm all in. Now, to be clear, I'm not going in totally blind. Here's what I do know so far. 1. Project Delphinius has been running for over 10 years, but everyone here with me this week will be here for the first time, equally as uninformed as me. 2. The trip is completely free, including meals and board, and there is a 3-day orientation in which we will be learning all about the Okablaya civilization and what makes it so successful. After orientation, we will have the choice to come back and participate in what sounds like a transformative training program. I forget the name of it, some long acronym. Anyway, the training program is a more intense program that focuses on our own personal development while we immerse ourselves deeply in the Okablo traditions and culture. And although it sounds cool, they describe it to be quite challenging. And 3, I will have a personal mentor, sort of like a chaperone, that I will be staying with. My mentor is named Alakoa, and I was able to chat with him for a few minutes on a video call right before I made my commitment. It was only brief, but I just felt like we clicked, and I found myself curious about him. We seemed like a good match, at least as far as I could tell. Ding! We've reached 10,000 feet, cruising altitude. I hear the unclicking of seatbelts as a few people stand up to stretch their legs or head to the bathroom. I haven't really got to know anyone yet. We met at a private airport, and I was escorted right to the runway where the plane was waiting. Not much time for chit-chat with the other passengers at the gate, like there would be on a normal commercial flight. I did exchange some basic pleasantries with a few others as I found my seat. I didn't get much info, but there was an unsettled, somewhat tense feeling in the air as we boarded. I could tell that everyone was at least as nervous as me about the whole thing, if not more. As I scanned the plane, I saw an array of different people of all ages, races, shapes, and sizes. There definitely wasn't a type. That much was obvious. Each person was as unique as the next. I'm still not really sure what they were looking for in the interview process. We seemed like a pretty normal group of people, if you asked me. This was my first time ever on a private plane. It was very classy, without a doubt, but it wasn't super luxurious. I was treated very well by the staff, but definitely wasn't being spoiled with the type of service you with a private plane. No champagne, no drink service of any kind, actually. Not even a TV. However, there was plenty of legroom and ergonomic seating, and even a space in the back with yoga mats, a couple self-propelled treadmills, and a stationary bike. It was about a 6-hour flight, so this setup was clearly for people to move their body and keep loose throughout it. The first half of the flight I was just trying to settle in, physically and mentally, doing my best to calm my restless legs and prepare myself as best I could for what would come once we landed. My first real interaction came when a woman on staff slid into the empty seat next to me. The plane had 3 rows of 2 seats, but there was only one person in each row, with an empty seat next to each of us. At that moment, I then realized that the extra seat must have been reserved for the staff to sit and talk with us. "Hello, I'm Freya," she said. "Welcome to Project Delphinius." "Hey, thank you. I'm Garrett," I responded. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Well, that's not an easy answer. How much time you got?" I replied jokingly. "I have as much time as you need," she answered in a calm yet serious voice. I was a little thrown off. I thought it was just a rhetorical question, but she was actually interested in how I was doing. "Let's just say it's been an up and down few weeks coming into this." "Well, what are some of your concerns?" "I'm not totally sure where to start," I replied, again with a little laugh. I felt myself resisting the question. It wasn't a simple answer, and I guess I wasn't really ready to unpack my feelings to this woman I just met. "Let's start with the biggest," she answered with a reassuring smile. "I guess I'm most concerned about the training school. You know, SHIP, I forget what it was exactly. SHIPHT, or we just call it SHIFT.
It stands for School of Higher Intelligence and Personal Health Transformation.
Yeah, that. I know they didn't give us many details about it, but it sounds pretty tough. Well, you haven't gotten to SHIFT yet. This week is just an orientation. It's only the first stage of the project. You'll get a taste of the training, but it's not too intense and it's only a few days. It's nothing you can't handle." "Okay, gotcha. Well, I'm also just worried that I won't like it here. This place seems a lot different than Ohio. I just might not fit." "Well, it's only a week, so even if you absolutely despise it, you'll survive. But I can assure you that won't be the case. This project has been running for over 10 years, and I can't recall one person who disliked us so strongly that they asked to leave early. But to help, you're going to have my contact and can reach out to me at any point to talk about your experience or ask any questions." "I appreciate that," I answered. "Of course, that's why I'm here," she replied as she handed me a card with her name and contact details. "Does anyone ever actually contact you?" I asked. "All the time," she said happily. "Huh." I was a bit surprised. "What do they usually need help with?" "Decisions, mainly. Processing their feelings and emotions surrounding their experience, and help with navigating life moving forward with the new perspectives they've gained." "Really? From just 1 week?" "Okablaya is a different place than you're used to. You're going to be exposed to ideas and philosophies here that you can't really unsee. Integrating that back into your normal life can be challenging." "Okay, thanks," I replied, a wave of nervousness washing over me. She obviously noticed my shift in demeanor. "Are you open to me sitting here a bit longer and getting to know you a little more?" she asked. "Sure, yeah, definitely," I replied. She continued to ask me real questions, not just surface level chit-chat like, "Where are you from?" or "What do you do for a living?" In fact, she didn't even ask me that stuff. She inquired more about my fears, my desired outcomes, my goals for the future, things like that. All she did was ask questions, but it helped so much. The questions were pointed. She was genuinely curious, but also very helpful. I was learning more about myself by the second, getting down to the root of the thoughts and feelings that had been swirling around my mind these last few weeks. It was kind of like a talk therapy session disguised as a casual conversation. There were 5 total staff like Freya on the plane for about 30 of us. It looked like everyone was as pleased with the service as I was. I could sense an overall shift in the group. The tension that was present at the start of the flight seemed to have dissipated. After our conversation had ended, she excused herself and returned a few minutes later with a covered plate of food. "Thank you. Oh, and can I have a Sprite, please?" I asked. "I'll be back with some water in a moment. It's all we offer on the flight." A plane with no soda? This place was confusing. It's like they are having an identity crisis on whether or not they are a high-class service or a budget commercial flight. When she came back, she handed me a glass of cold water. "This is from the spring of Lux Liquidius. It's one of the most beautiful and famous springs in Okablaya. The name means liquid sunlight." I took a sip. Wow. I don't think I've ever drank such a refreshing water. My body immediately felt rejuvenated with just a few sips. I removed the cover off my plate, placing it on the now empty seat beside me. I looked down and was surprised to see a beautiful meal that looked like it could have been served in a 5-star restaurant. I couldn't help but dig right in. I hadn't even realized I was hungry. I think the nerves overpowered my appetite. But this plate was so inviting that my mouth started salivating at the sight of it. A colorful assortment of grilled vegetables, fingerling potatoes, a crisp side salad with fresh squeezed lemon juice, a bushel of shimmering purple grapes, and sliced avocado, all plated and served as if I were some kind of royalty. I can't remember the last time I had a meal this tasty or this healthy. When Freya came back to collect my plate and ask how I was doing, I responded, "Great, best meal I've had in a while." "That's good to hear. All of the food is organically grown and sourced from a biodynamic farm at the airport and prepared right on the flight by our chef." "The airport has its own farm?" I responded, quite surprised. "Mm-hmm. How else are we going to feed our guests a proper meal?" "Wow, very cool." Then she informed me, "We have about 2 hours left on the flight. The departure and arrival time have been coordinated to cause the least amount of disruption to your circadian rhythm as possible. However, we are changing 3 time zones, so soon you'll begin to notice the light spectrums in the cabin changing gradually to help with the transition." "Oh, interesting. Sounds good." I wasn't entirely sure I understood what she was talking about, but at least we're getting close. "Any questions before I head up front?" "Nope, all set." Then she turned and started back up the aisle. "Oh, actually, I do have one more question, Freya," I blurted out before she was too far away. "The name, Okablaya. What does it mean?" She stepped back towards me, looked me right in the eye, and said something I'll never forget. "It's a Lakota word. It means unrestricted, or without interference," she explained. "In other words, it means free." I stepped off the plane feeling pretty damn good. I was well fed, rested, and alert. Overall, I was feeling much less anxious and a lot more excited. We stepped directly off the plane and onto the runway. It was mid to late afternoon. The bright sun was very hot, but there was a gentle breeze that kept it manageable. I'm not sure why they're only letting us bring one duffel bag, but at the moment, I'm glad because it was a bit of a walk from the runway to the pickup area where our mentors were scheduled to pick us up. As we walked towards the pickup area, I got a glimpse at the farm where they grew the in-flight meals. It was beautifully kept and maintained meticulously. As we arrived at the pickup area, which was basically just the road in front of the airport, I quickly spotted Alakoa, who was easy to recognize even after just a short video call. "Garrett," he proclaimed with a big smile and a wave as I approached him. "Alakoa, great to meet you in person," I replied as I went in for a shake. He gave me a firm handshake, then pulled me closer for a hug. I was a little taken back at first, but just went with it. He brought me in close, our left ears almost touching, and he held me firmly. Not like a squeeze, but a solid hug for sure. As he held me, he took a deep breath in and sighed an audible exhale before letting go. I definitely wasn't the type of person who hugged other men like that, so it was a little uncomfortable, but I did my best to be open to the culture. As he loaded my bag into the back and hopped into the car, I noticed he was very fit, visibly muscular, but not overly jacked, very fluid and athletic. He was well groomed and sharp, but not like all metrosexual. He was manly, but still warm and welcoming. He was also very hospitable and clearly cared about offering a top-notch service, but he wasn't over the top or phony. The drive started with some small talk about the flight and whether or not I needed to eat or use the bathroom. I didn't need either. He was extremely friendly and sincere. He made me feel comfortable right away. The nerves were continuing to shed. "So, you and I will be spending a lot of time together this week," he said cheerfully. "Yep, I guess you're the lucky guy whose job it is to wine and dine me, huh?" I replied, half kidding. Nope, no wining and dining on the schedule this week," he said with a laugh. "Oh, come on, I know how it goes. You show me around, hit the highlight reel, and convince me to stay for shift." "No, definitely not," he replied, getting a bit more serious. "I'm not here to convince you of anything. Neither will anyone else you meet this week. It's not how we do things around here," he explained. "All I will do is expose you to the most honest representation of who we are and what we do. Of course, I will answer questions and help you navigate any decisions, but ultimately you will make choices about your life yourself. I'm impartial to these decisions." I paused for a moment, a little confused. "So you're telling me they're paying someone to spend the whole week with me and host me and not expecting you to sell me on the idea of this whole training project thing?" "There's nothing for sale," he replied quickly. "Even if you accepted the offer for training, it wouldn't cost you anything financially. Plus, our goal isn't to sell anyone on anything. Our goal is to have a training class with the best possible candidates. If you're a good fit, great. If you're not a good fit, the last thing I want to do is convince you to join us. If you're not 100% in it on your own terms, it would jeopardize the quality of the entire class." "Okay, gotcha. Makes sense," I replied, a bit sheepishly. After a few moments of silence, I interrupted with, "So what's on the agenda this week?" "It's pretty straightforward," he replied. "For the rest of today, tomorrow, and the following morning, you're just going to shadow me in my normal everyday life. Nothing fancy, just the reality of what a few days in Okablaya look and feel like. At the end of the third day, we'll head in for our initial meeting, a kickoff to the orientation, which will last that evening and the next 2 full days. Normally, we have 3 separate days for each, but for this class, they adjusted the schedule so we can all catch the last few days of Harmonia." "Harmonia? What's that?" I asked. "Oh man, Harmonia is an awesome transformational art and music festival," he replied excitedly. "I'm so glad you're here for it. It's one of the best weekends of the year in Okablaya." "Is it like Burning Man or something?" I asked. Even though I had never been to Burning Man, I knew enough about it to know that it was a whacked-out hippie fest and psychedelic drug party that also went under the guise of, quote, art and music festival. I guess there are some similarities, but it's much less commercialized and much more centered around true connection." "Connection to what?" "To the 3 most important things. Connection to nature, connection to yourself, and connection to each other." "Okay, yep, I was right. Hippie Fest." "Oh, sounds interesting," I responded. "What does Harmonia mean?" "It means union of hearts. It's a chance each year for us all to come together and synchronize our energies as we open ourselves up to a more beautiful way of being." I had to turn away and bite my lip. He sounded genuinely excited. I didn't want to insult the woo-woo love fest, but but it wasn't really my type of thing. I know, I'm trying to be more open-minded, but I have to draw the line somewhere. Maybe this part of the trip will be optional. And when is this exactly? I asked. It's after the orientation. Ah, options. That was the word I was waiting for. Sounds pretty cool, I responded, trying not to ruin the excitement. I then changed the subject quickly. So how many people are in this orientation group? We have 4 flights of 30 coming in, so 120 will be here this week. However, you'll be working in smaller groups throughout the week. Oh wow, that's more than I expected. Yeah, the project has been ramping up quite a bit. The first few years, we did 1 class of 50 per year. Then we went to 2 classes of 60 for a couple of years. Then 3 classes of 120 for the last several years. This is the first year we are running 4 classes of 120. Oh wow, why such an increase? I was suddenly very curious. Well, there are a lot of reasons, but basically they all come down to the fact that we are in a time of great change, he started. Garrett, the human race is at a precipice, and the collective decisions made in these next few years and decades will ultimately determine the fate of our species. I didn't necessarily disagree with him. The world was changing a lot, especially after the whole COVID pandemic. But he sounded a little dramatic to me. Okay, I get that, but what does that have to do with this project? I asked, unable to see any correlation between my visit here and the fate of the human species. He paused for a moment and took a breath. I have to be mindful not to get too far into this right now. This will be covered in the orientation in a very specific sequence. We will cover all this and the mission of this project in detail. He sounded serious, so I didn't push him on it. But to summarize, the Council has continued to invest more resources into the program, as most people believe it is a valuable mission during this pivotal time in human history. Most people? So not everyone believes this? I asked. No, not everyone agrees, he answered in a serious tone. What do you mean? I thought everyone agreed on everything here. Isn't that what makes Okablaya supposedly so great? The video said this place was like a utopia. That's not what the video said, he snapped back, and at no point will we pretend for that to be the case. We are a free people, but we have our disagreements like everyone else. So what don't they agree about? I asked, and immediately sensed he didn't want to answer that question directly. Like I said, now isn't really the time to get into this, but I can give you the overview. As you know, Okablaya is a secret civilization, and some people are afraid that this project is a risk to that secrecy, which is ultimately a risk to our lineage, our traditions, and what makes us who we are, our freedom. On the other hand, some people believe it's time that we unveil, or go public in other words, and intentionally and openly bring Okablaya ways to the Western civilization. They feel it's our responsibility to teach and share in order to save the human race. And, like I said, others think that unveiling would mean the end of the Okablaya traditions and our ancestral bloodlines forever. Both sides make important points, and it's a nuanced conversation to say the least. We'll talk about it more later on. I could see the point of contention for sure, but was still perplexed by this whole freedom thing. It's not like Okablaya is the only free society in the world. Are they too isolated to realize that most modern cultures are free? America is a free country too. You do know that, right? I replied. Land of the free? It's kind of our thing. He just smirked as he turned his gaze away from me and out the window towards the mountain roads. After a moment of awkward silence, I realized he wasn't going to answer, so I decided to change the subject. So out of the 120, how many usually move on to shift? I asked. Statistically, about 2/3 move forward into the next stage of the training. What happens to the other third? I responded curiously. Either we realize they aren't going to be a good fit, or they decide they aren't ready on their own. You mean you tell some people they aren't a good fit after you've interviewed them and flew them all the way here? Yeah, of course. We have to honor the project by holding the group to the highest standards. The interview process is thorough, but that doesn't mean we don't miss the mark from time to time. Okay, so what about the ones who opt out themselves? What are the main reasons people don't want to continue? Well, he replied with a sigh, they'll give you 1,000,001 reasons why it's not for them, but ultimately it boils down to the fact that they aren't ready to change. Change what? I replied quickly. Themselves, he answered immediately. Their beliefs, their values, their habits, everything required for this level of growth. I think you guys made it pretty clear during the intake that we would be working on self-transformation. Don't they know that coming in? Of course they do. Everyone claims they want to change until they really understand what's required. When they actually come face to face with all the things they'll have to let go of, many retreat back very quickly. Let go of? What do you mean? Like giving up drinking and cigarettes and junk food and stuff? I asked. Well, sometimes those things too, but that's actually the easy stuff. What people are really afraid to let go of is their beliefs. I don't follow, I replied. Their beliefs, their biases, their preconceived notions about the world and their role in it. The things they never stop to question because it's a belief system they've subscribed to forever, or it's the way it's always been done. When it's time to challenge our longest held beliefs, most people will go to the edges of the earth to avoid it. That's what they're scared of? I questioned. Yes. It's not a conscious fear. It's deeply rooted subconscious conditioning. And it's the fundamental reason Western civilization is crumbling. They can't or won't change the systems that are failing because it would mean admitting they've been wrong. And being wrong is something Westerners are taught to fear from a very early age. Huh. I guess I never really thought about it like that, I answered. Then I continued. Well, you won't have to worry about that with me. I'm feeling ready. Something inside me is telling me to be open to everything and accept the unfamiliar. I'm already kind of digging the personal transformation idea. That's great. I encourage you to hold on to that perspective all week if you can. But I warn you, it will be challenging. The drive was entirely through backcountry roads. I gazed out the window at the beautiful mountains and hills covered with lush plant life and thick jungle forest. We crossed a few rivers and valleys with little waterfalls that looked like something out of a magazine. It was a tropical mountain paradise, with palm trees and banana trees everywhere. It reminded me of the time I went to Costa Rica for a couple weeks, or could even be compared to the islands of Hawaii that I had seen in pictures many times. Right as our conversation wound down, we pulled into some kind of neighborhood community. A large stone sign by the entrance read the town name, Panamoka. I couldn't really see any houses at first. The jungly woods were very dense and the terrain was quite hilly. As we drove through, I noticed the grounds were well maintained, and I then saw some houses tucked up in the hills behind the trees. The homes weren't huge, but were gorgeously designed in geometric patterns and circular structures that were mostly open to the outside air. Large decks sprawled out in all directions overhanging the hillsides, and large windows overlooked the mountain valleys. The properties were almost entirely wooded, carefully built into the natural flow of the hills and trees. There wasn't a lot of traditional lawn or fancy landscaping, but everyone I saw so far had a miniature farm with rows of crops and a dome-shaped greenhouse structure that looked almost futuristic. The whole community was clearly cared for by its residents, and even though I hadn't met a single person yet, you could just tell the people who lived here were happy. It couldn't be more clear that this was a place of prosperity. We crossed a bridge over a river, and down the river in the distance I could see a park with people playing soccer and riding bikes, and others walking down a strip of what must have been shops and restaurants. I couldn't be sure, but it looked like the river may have opened up into a larger body of water, possibly the ocean. We were off the bridge and back into the thickness of the jungle before I could get a clear view. It was tough to get a read on this place. It felt more like a large campus than a town. With lush plant life so vibrant, it was borderline overwhelming. The roads were narrow and windy, and there were many paths off to the side of the road that looked nicely groomed for walking and biking. We must have traveled several miles through the windy, jungly mountain roads when we finally pulled into a long dirt driveway. I assumed we were arriving at his house. It was a few hundred yards off the road and into the woods, very private and quiet. Eventually, we pulled up to what appeared to be his house. And like I expected based on the other homes I saw, it was not a traditional house in any sense. The woods were very dense, and it was hard to tell exactly where the jungle ended and the house began. As we walked in the front door, I was surprised at the beauty of the place. Large open spaces with big windows all around. Some walls opened right to the outside air, and something I had never seen before, rounded corners and curved walls separating the rooms. All of the furniture was low to the floor, or on the floor, really, and I didn't see a couch or chair anywhere. Just mattress-like pillows for resting and cushions for sitting at the table. Everything was made from natural wood, and the lighting was low and glowed a warm orange, almost like a tropical version of a cabin fireplace kind of vibe. Odd, yes, but extremely cozy and welcoming. As he showed me to my room, he informed me, "I have a dinner prepared, but I have to get it in the oven. It will take about an hour to cook, so we'll have some tea and chill for a bit while we wait. Take a few minutes to settle in and come on down whenever you're ready." "Great, thanks," I replied. I looked down at my bed, just a few inches of foam cushion directly on the floor, with blankets and pillows. There was a small nightstand right next to it, and a dresser and closet for my belongings. Very simple. I unpacked quickly and headed down. I didn't want to keep him waiting. As I entered the living room, he was sitting at a long table, like a dining table, but low to the ground, only about a foot or so high. He was in a relaxed kneeling position. His back was long and upright, and he was sitting back on his own feet with his heels rolled away to each side. He reminded me of some kind of Japanese Zen master or something. He looked proper but relaxed and comfortable without even a bit of slouch or struggle. I got down on the ground and just sort of kneeled awkwardly, trying to mimic his position without looking too clumsy. I couldn't really do it, so I adjusted my legs to the side, but that felt worse. Then I tucked them back under again. Not much better. A few seconds later, I attempted the old crisscross applesauce, and realized quickly that wasn't going to work either. Finally, I just sat on my ass with my legs out in front and my hands on the ground behind me. "So, what's with the floor furniture?" I asked, trying not to show how much I was struggling to get comfortable. The Okablaya people have always maintained a floor culture. My ancestors lived this way, and I choose to as well. "So, because your great-grandparents didn't use chairs, you don't either?" Doesn't seem like a good justification for being uncomfortable all the time. Do I seem uncomfortable? I didn't answer, but we both know he didn't. The human body is designed perfectly to live in balance with its natural habitat. It knows how to rest comfortably on the ground without any support. The ground is our natural habitat, remember. I just nodded along politely. When the body feels grounded and connected firmly to the floor, it feels safe. It feels secure. And therefore, it can fully relax, calming the central nervous system and giving the body the opportunity to rest, digest, relax, and restore, he explained. Interesting. I never knew that, I replied. Proper grounding is a key to health and happiness, and allows the joints to be strong, supple, and resilient throughout our entire lifetime. It allows us to heal and grow, even at rest. Well, I don't feel so comfortable down here. I can see that. We'll be working on this quite a bit. You're going to teach me how to sit on the floor? Wow, this really is a life-changing trip, I said with a sarcastic laugh. He laughed a little too. Yes, but I'm also going to help you with a lot more than that. And I encourage you to wait and feel before you make sarcastic remarks about how much it will change your life. All right. I'll give it a try, I said, keeping it light. So far, Alakoa and I seem to be hitting it off pretty well, even though it was becoming obvious how different we were. "So, is this what you do for a living? Are you some kind of doctor?" I inquired. "I'm a lifestyle medicine practitioner." "It's kind of like what you would consider a doctor," he replied as he began setting some cups in a pot on the table. "But before we get ahead of ourselves, can I pour you some tea?" he added. "Sure. What do you have?" I asked. "I've brewed some kava for us to share tonight. I've been preparing this brew for several weeks. I'm honored to share it with you as I welcome you into my home for the week." "Wow, thanks. What's kava? Kava is a ceremonial tea from the Pacific Islands. It's been adopted into Okablaya culture over the past century after experiencing the mental and emotional benefits. What kind of mental and emotional benefits? I asked as I watched him pour a brown substance into my cup that honestly just looked like muddy water. You'll likely experience a calming of your nervous system, which is definitely running high right now through all this transition. But instead of getting sluggish and tired like alcohol, it's more common to feel sharp and alert. Okay, I like the sound of that, I replied as I looked down into the cup. It's customary to yell bula as you shoot it back. It's like cheers, he informed me. We tapped our glasses together lightly and yelled bula as we each took a large gulp of the strange liquid. I wasn't far off. It was a strong, earthy taste that I would best describe as muddy water. I tried to pretend I enjoyed it. It's an acquired taste, he said, obviously able to tell I didn't love it. Although after just a few sips, I was starting to get used to it. So you were saying you're some kind of lifestyle doctor? Is that even a thing? I asked. Lifestyle medicine practitioner is the term. And yes, it's one of my primary focuses, he replied. So what do you do exactly? Help sick people by fixing their habits and stuff? I asked. Well, ideally the people I work with are not sick. If they are, I'm not doing a very good job. In Okablaya medicine, we approach sickness from a preventative standpoint. We combine our ancient healing traditions with modern lifestyle practices to prevent people from getting sick first and foremost, and then to optimize their health to the absolute highest potential secondarily. It's the opposite of what you're used to, where people go to doctors when they are sick, and the objective is to get them from sick back to basic daily living, and that's all. But in most cases, it's that exact way of daily living that makes them sick in the first place, which is why lifestyle is our primary medicine. I sounded, intrigued by the idea. Most people I work with are already quite healthy, and I help them reach new levels of thriving. It's rare for anyone in Okablaya to be dealing with any sort of chronic conditions, he added. How is it medicine, though? I don't understand. Are you prescribing them medications as well? I asked. No. No pharmaceuticals. We use the word medicine in a much different way. See, in the Western world, medicine is something that you take to try and make your problems just go away, he began. For example, if someone is sick or suffers from some prolonged symptoms, it's considered the best possible scenario if the person can find a pill, shot, or surgery to make those symptoms disappear with as little change in their life as possible. Right? Yeah, I guess so, I responded. In other words, if you can cure yourself, he emphasized the word cure with air quotes, without having to make any changes to your diet, your daily habits, or your thinking, that's optimal, right? Poof, problem's gone, all healed. I mean, yeah, I guess that's how most people feel, I replied, starting to see his point. Medicine is not something you just take to make your problems go away, Garrett. Quite the opposite, in fact. Medicine is something that brings the problems to the surface, so you can face them head on. Then, if you face them head on, they may actually go away, for real, he continued. Medicine is not just physical substance either. It can be anything that helps you dig down to the root and identify where and why you're living out of alignment, out of balance. Once we can see this clearly, we can allow the body to guide us back to homeostasis and return to a state of harmony, a state of ease. Okay, I got you, I replied. Ease, my friend, is where we thrive. And do you know the opposite of ease? He asked, looking towards me for an answer. Not easy, I answered, puzzledly. Dizzy. The opposite of ease is disease. Disease. All imbalances create disease, and therefore, all disease is nothing more than an imbalance in the being, physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. Okay, makes sense. So you don't just want to make the symptoms go away, right? I asked. Right. The symptoms are sacred. They carry vital information with a level of intelligence we cannot consciously understand. It's like a communication system, telling us exactly what the body wants and doesn't want at all times, 24/7. When we numb or escape the symptoms or make them, quote, go away with a pill, the disease only grows stronger. Makes total sense, I replied, suddenly recognizing how backwards I've had it all along. When we do any type of medicine work, and there are many types, the goal is always the same. Dig to the root, do the work, and return to balance. It's a common saying in our culture that the only way out is through. I paused for a moment. I could sense the power behind those words. I let it sink in before following up. And you can do that through lifestyle? I asked. Of course. How you live is who you are, Garrett. Lifestyle is your life. And because it is your life, there are infinite variables. How you eat, how you sleep, how you move, how you breathe, how you think, how you talk to yourself, how you respond to adversity, how you handle conflict, how you connect with others, how you sit on the floor. I cut him off with a smile. Exactly, he smiled back. You're getting it. We both chuckled. Must have been a lot of schooling to be someone with all those answers, I said. First off, I don't have the answers. They do. Everything we need to know about every problem we have is already present in our body and mind. Our body is always communicating that information, like I said before. I help them access that intelligence from within and decipher what the body is really asking for. Then we get to work creating the necessary lifestyle adaptations to fall back into rhythm. Okay, now he was starting to sound a little woo-woo, but I nodded along with an open mind. Secondly, there's no formal schooling for this. Just years of shadowing my teachers, experimenting with my own daily practices, and of course, observation of nature. What? So no degree? I exclaimed. Nope. So how are you allowed to work with patients? Is that legal? The patients come to me on their own free will. Why would that be illegal? He asked back. Because, I said, you have to have some kind of regulation or something. Otherwise, anyone could just walk around saying, I'm a lifestyle medicine practitioner, I exclaimed. And anyone can, he responded casually as he sipped his tea. So how do they know you're legit? I pressed. They trust me, Garrett. Trust is what all relationships in Okablaya are built upon. Not some piece of paper on a wall that proves I passed some classes when I was in my 20s. The type of trust required for true healing requires far more than that. I'm sorry, but that's insane, I answered. This could never work in the States. You can't trust anybody anymore. Empirical code, he whispered softly under his breath. What was that? I answered, not really catching it. Nothing, he replied quickly. Point is, anyone can proclaim anything they want. But that's not going to be enough. You have to demonstrate your knowledge and skills in other ways. And most of all, you have to show you honestly care for the patient, which cannot be proven on a test. He paused, setting down his kava. This is not symptomology, just memorizing which pill goes with each symptom. This is wisdom, Garrett. And it is not possible to measure wisdom with standardized tests, he added. I had no response. Alakoa took a second to gather his thoughts, then continued. The highly regulated system you're used to disrupts the organic formation of healing relationships that would occur naturally if not for the interference of this academic bureaucracy. I threw in one final question because I really just couldn't wrap my head around it. So not even some kind of test to make sure you understand the science side? We have ways of proving to our teachers that we are ready, and rites of passage to demonstrate our commitment. But it would be nearly impossible to have standardized testing around any real healing modality. This is why in Western medicine, you see lots and lots of testing, but virtually no healing whatsoever. Huh. So no science, I stated, thinking I was beginning to understand. I didn't say that. There's a component of science, of course, and it is important. But the science is only a small part of our healing traditions. It's important for you to understand that Okablaya lifestyle medicine is an art, much more than a science. He paused and checked back on the last part. Does that make sense to you, Garrett? I need this concept to be crystal clear. Yeah. Healing is an art, not a science. I'm getting it. For the next few moments, I just sat there and tried to digest it all. Alakoa was like some kind of millennial monk. I could see his wisdom was deep, and he radiated confidence. But not in the type of way that makes you dislike someone. In fact, I found myself subconsciously looking for reasons to dislike this guy and could not find any. He had the type of confidence that inspires you. He went to check on the dinner. When he returned, he topped me off with some more kava. Just a few more minutes, he reported. I was beginning to notice a very light, almost euphoric feeling. It was gentle, but I had a sort of buzz going. My mouth was a tiny bit tingly, and I found myself feeling very relaxed. Not like mushy or sloppy, though. I was actually quite alert and focused. I just felt relaxed in my environment, with no anxiety, just comfortable. We sat in silence for a few moments and sipped the kava. I felt a strong curiosity towards Alakoa. It seemed as if he was some sort of wise elder, disguised in the body of a very athletic 30-something, with a good sense of style, humor, and a charisma that made him highly persuasive. I had a lot more questions for him. So you mentioned earlier that lifestyle medicine was one of your primary focuses. What else do you do? I'm a human advancement strategist, he replied boldly. A human advancement strategist? Okay, what's that? I asked, very intrigued. He smirked and replied, There's a lot to it. Let me just grab the dinner first. He returned from the kitchen a few moments later with 2 full plates of food. Whoa, looks amazing, I said, as he laid the plates down. I've been preparing the meal for a few days. I want to make sure you're well nourished after all the travel. As I looked over the meal, I saw various types of cooked vegetables, several homemade sauces that smelt amazing, and a salad with more colors than I'd ever seen on one plate. The look and smell alone almost blew me back from the table, in a good way. Did you prepare all this yourself? I asked. Just about, he responded. There's a few things here that Heyoka brought over from his garden, but the rest is from mine. Seriously? I meant, did you cook it all? But you actually grew it all too? Yeah, pretty much, he answered with a smile, clearly amused by my shock. If you think this is good, wait till you meet Heyoka. He's one of my best friends. He's a permaculture wizard and creates some serious magic in his garden. Sounds cool, I answered as I reached towards the food. I suddenly realized how hungry I had gotten. Let us first give thanks, he offered. I pulled my hand back quickly, as if I wasn't about to start grabbing without giving thanks. He sat tall and closed his eyes, so I did the same. Lord, God, Great Spirit, the one with 1,000 names, yet the one who cannot be named. We thank you for offering us this abundant meal, providing us with the purest energy and intelligence from our mother, Pachamama. Please guide us as we redistribute this energy back into the world with honor, courage, and compassion, so we may connect more deeply with ourselves, each other, and your divine light. Aho. We opened our eyes and began to eat. After quietly enjoying the first few bites, I reignited the conversation from earlier on. So, human advancement strategist, this is part of your work? I asked again. Yes, that's really where I'm putting most of my focus right now. I'm a part of the Human Advancement Council, and Project Delphinius is our main priority. I'm still unclear on how this retreat thing could possibly relate to advancing the human race, I followed up.
I hear you, but it will become clear as the time goes on. It's important I let you connect those dots on your own.
Okay. Can you at least tell me how you got into this role? Yeah, that I can do, he answered. Like I was saying earlier, my work in lifestyle medicine is advisory at this point. I mentor some young practitioners, but I no longer work with clients directly myself. Ever since I was invited onto the council, I've redirected my energy towards this project and the mission of the council. How did you get up this high so quickly? You seem young, I asked curiously. I got an early start in my work, and I didn't waste half my 20s kissing the rings of the academic royalty, so I had a lot of real-world experience at a young age. But I started gaining real recognition as a leader in the space after I produced a documentary called The Business of Sickness a few years ago. The Business of Sickness? What was it about? It was a film that illustrated the reality of Western medicine from an economic standpoint. It illustrated how the entire system is nothing more than a financially driven machine with quite literally no other outcome goal than producing revenue. Huh. And how did you prove this? I asked. It started when I began to ask a simple question. Is there anything in this world that produces more profit than unhealthy people? What do you mean? I mean, I looked at all of the highest traded commodities in the world. Oil, corn, sugar, natural gas, things like that. And I compared it to the profits generated in modern medicine and pharmaceuticals. I researched for years, and I shared my work in the documentary. And what did you find? I asked. By the time I was done, the evidence was irrefutable. There's no product in this world that produces more financial gain than people being treated for illness. Really? Yes. Sick humans are the most highly traded and profitable commodity in the world. In fact, in the history of the world. So you're comparing people to products like corn and oil? Seems like very different things, I said. They are very different, but look how they're being treated. Basically the same, right? He began. Traded like a commodity, bounced around from doctor to doctor, generating massive revenue just through testing and imaging alone, before the treatment even begins. And the treatment, as everybody knows, is nothing more than lifelong management of the illness. The trading continues back and forth between various medical offices for tests, images, follow-ups, procedures, and the like. Prescriptions handed out like candy with no intention of ever coming off, only ever adding more. And then you factor in things like shots and surgeries, and the hospital stays afterwards, the follow-up visits, and again, the prescriptions, and you're looking at one single, moderately unhealthy person generating over $1 million in revenue in their lifetime. And that's a really conservative number, he continued. And we're at a place now where someone who can live independently healthy and go their entire life without being sucked into this system is an extreme outlier, he finished. Wow, I never thought of it like that, I said, kind of shocked by the notion of it all. You know that new walk-in clinic in your town? He asked me. Yeah, I responded slowly. How do you know about it? I didn't know you knew anything about my hometown. I don't. But I know you live in a town in the United States, so I know there's a new walk-in clinic recently added or currently being built. Ever notice how medical buildings of all sorts dominate the commercial construction world? He asked rhetorically. It keeps growing and growing. More doctors, more drugs, more procedures, more technology, more breakthroughs, more of everything imaginable, except one thing. What's that? I asked. Healing, he responded. I could feel his passion for the matter pulsating through his words. This was clearly a topic he cared deeply about. Sounds like a great film, was all I could say in response. Thanks. That's just a short overview. I'll get you a copy of it. And it was a big hit, it seems? Yeah, bigger than I expected. It kind of got my name out there and helped me land funding for my following documentary, which was even more successful. What was that one about? I followed up. It was about a disease I identified and coined, which was also the name of the film, and it highlighted the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual ramifications of smartphones on humanity. What was the name? Scoliosis, he answered. Scoliosis. I chuckled. Is that really the name? Funny name, yes, but very serious topic, he responded. I investigated the deep cultural impact of scrolling habits on our world right now, with a strong emphasis on the downstream effect of future generations. Oh, this sounds a lot like the documentary I saw back home called The Social Dilemma. Have you seen it? Of course. It came out shortly after mine. That one was all about the dangers of cell phones and social media and stuff as well, I said, although I'm sure he knew that. No, it wasn't, he responded firmly. Yes, it was. I just watched it recently, I answered, slightly confused to why he didn't remember that. No, the dangers of social media was a big part of the film, but that's not what it was actually about, he replied. What do you mean? The first 3/4 of the film cover that. They hit the obvious points on these effects to get the viewer bought in and nodding along, saying, oh my God, so true. They do this to build trust, he explained. Then, if you remember, they spent the last part of the movie championing their ideas of information censorship, like some sort of truth overlords, convincing the sheeple that there should be one governing body designated as the complete authority over what's true and what's false. I could feel him becoming a little worked up. The sole purpose of the social dilemma was to make you fear the free exchange of information, which is the biggest threat to the system and the only defense against complete dictatorship. It was purely pro-censorship propaganda. Wow, I didn't realize that's what they were doing, I said, slightly embarrassed. Of course you didn't, because they did it really well. It was a high-budget film, and remember, it was on Netflix. You should know that a film like that would never get the green light if it didn't fit the approved narrative. If you watch it again, it will be very obvious. I was shocked to hear his stance on this. They spent most of the movie convincing you that people with power are dangerous and shouldn't be trusted. And then they say that they will protect you from these evil people. To save you from the bad guys, they will control all the information. First, they drown you in fear. Then they offer to be your life vest. I didn't answer. I just listened. Trust us. We'll keep you safe from false information, he said in an over-exaggerated superhero voice. Yeah, like the answer to the world's problems right now is one central body controlling the access of all information. One group that gets to decide what's true and magically make all the other opinions completely disappear. You can't make this stuff up, he finished as he shook his head in disbelief. After a few bites of food, he seemed to be calming down, so I decided to keep questioning. You said something about future generations. You think their habits are going to be worse than ours around phones? I mean, is that even possible? Thinking about my own phone usage, that seemed hard to believe. And I'd say my habits were moderate compared to some of my friends and family. I actually think they'll be better. In fact, 2 or 3 generations from now, you won't see anyone carrying internet devices around with them. They'll adapt back to a balance with the internet, like we have here. A tool to be used with intention, not an all-consuming addiction. Okay, then that sounds like good news. So what did you show in your film? I focused a lot of the movie on the concept of secondhand scrolling. I snorted, trying not to laugh out loud. Okay, that one has to be a joke, right? I exclaimed. He smiled, but answered firmly, not one bit. I've heard of secondhand smoking, but I've never heard anyone mention secondhand scrolling. Not yet, but you will, he replied. It's something everyone will be talking about in the coming decades. You think it's really that big of a deal? What do you think? He responded. What do you think will become of an entire generation of kids whose parents made 20 to 30 times the amount of eye contact with their phone each day than they did with their own child? Kids who grew up in a home where almost all chances of empathetic connection and spontaneous play were squandered by a little square of glass. The degree of emotional compensation we're going to see is unprecedented. Yeah, I guess if you look at it that way, it's probably something to consider, I replied. There's no other way to look at it. This is the reality of the situation, he replied. It's the most radical disruption of human connection the world has ever known, and it infected the entire Western world practically overnight. Wow, I never thought about it like that, I replied. We each sat and ate quietly for a few moments. I was thinking about what he was saying and must admit, it was a little concerning. I was surprised with how passionate he was about something like cell phones. I mean, they clearly come with some downsides, but looking at it like an actual disease and something that could affect future generations, I never heard anybody talking about it like this. I'm back and forth on whether or not Alakoa is some kind of unique thought leader or a paranoid doomsdayer. Finally, I broke the silence with something light. So you're a lifestyle medicine practitioner turned investigative journalist / documentary producer turned human advancement strategist? Does that sound about right? He cracked loudly. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, lots of ups and downs left out of that story, but that's pretty accurate. I don't like to pin myself into any one category or any one way of thinking. I'm always on the search for ways to improve myself and help others do the same. It's a journey that takes different shapes at different stages of life, and I'm okay with that. But anyway, that's more than enough about me. I want to hear about you. I kind of squirmed a little. I didn't feel like I had much to share. The last couple of years of my life have been pretty flat. Nothing too exciting to share about me lately. Just the usual stuff. Well, he replied, I'm curious to know what the usual stuff is for you. I also suspect that getting on a plane to a distant land you've never heard of, to live with a stranger and participate in a classified project, is not something that happens too often. So I imagine this is an unusual time for you. We both laughed out loud. Okay. Yeah, that part you're right about. But leading into this trip, life has been a little mundane lately. Actually, it's been mundane for about as long as I can remember. Why is that? He followed up. I didn't really have much of an answer to that. I just shrugged and replied, I don't know. It's just kind of how it goes with me. Same old, same old. Same old what? Come on, you got to give me a little more than that. Don't you know all about me already? Didn't you study my profile and everything? I asked, realizing that I really didn't want to talk about my life right now. A profile could never tell me as much about a man as a man actually talking about himself in his own words. A bullet list of facts about your life is not who you are. I want to hear you tell me about who you are. All right, I'll give you the overview, I started. I mean, I'm a pretty ordinary guy. I'm relatively successful, good job and everything. Nothing too exciting, but it pays well. What do you do? He replied. I work in the financial department for a big corporation. Not one you've ever heard of. It's a company that makes factory line equipment, like the big conveyor belts and stuff. Nothing exciting, like I said. I explained. I've spent my entire adult life chasing the typical American dream. A well-paying job with benefits and retirement, a big house in a new development, a nice car, white picket fence, 1.5 kids. You know how it goes. 1.5 kids? I don't understand, he replied. Sorry, that was just a joke. No kids. Just basically saying that life is as average as it can be. So no kids. Maybe soon, he asked. Honestly, probably not, I replied. Kids were next up on the checklist, but I actually ended up getting divorced a few years back. We lasted about 4 years, but that's it. What happened? He questioned. There's a lot to it. But honestly, it really came down to the fact that we just fell out of love. I started. We started dating our freshman year of college. She lived in the same dorm, right down the hall. It was my first real relationship. Hers too. It was great at first, of course, and then we just got real comfortable and followed the instructions from there. Graduated college, did our internships in the same city, both landed good jobs shortly after. Everything was going just as we planned. So naturally, the next step was to get engaged and start planning a wedding, I explained. So we planned this big wedding, did the whole song and dance, I mean, by the time the wedding came, we had already been living together for a few years, so it was really just a formality at that point. A few months later, the excitement of the wedding wore off, and it was back to regular life. And regular life was just a little too regular, I'm guessing? Asked Alakoa. Yeah, exactly. A few years of autopilot, and one day we just woke up and realized we just weren't in love anymore. Honestly, looking back, maybe we never really were. Was all he replied. We were just going through the motions, following the steps, saying the lines, sticking to the script. Not like it was ever bad. I mean, there was no real reason to ever break up. Life was just very okay. And now? He asked. Still just going through the motions, honestly. I'm not, unhappy, but I can see very clearly now that something's missing, I explained. It's why I decided to do this. I needed something exciting and different for once. And is it helping so far? Well, I've only been here for a few hours, but the lead-up has felt really good. I mean, this whole thing came together in just a couple of weeks, but that's part of the excitement. Moving through the interview process gave me this burst of life I've really only felt one other time in my life. Which was when? He asked. Shortly after the divorce, I almost started a business with my friend. An app, actually. Oh, wow, sounds exciting. Go on. A few buddies invited me out to get some dinner and drinks one night, not long after the divorce was finalized, to cheer me up, And everywhere we went was so crowded and the waiting lists were so long that we got super frustrated. After an hour, we finally sat down at a dive bar to get wings and beer. And my one friend and I came up with an idea, I explained. It was literally a back of a napkin invention to help solve the problem that just frustrated us for the past hour. What was the purpose of the app, he asked. It was really simple. Works like this, I began. Before you go out, you open the app and select the area in which you'll be heading towards. Within that area, you can select up to 5 restaurants you'd be happy to eat at that night. And boom, you're now on the waiting list of all those places at once. Okay, and then what? He asked. Then the first place that a table opens, you get a notification. You have 3 minutes to accept it and 7 minutes to get there. Once you check in, you're removed from all the other lists. Or you could deny it and wait for the next one. It's your call, I explained. So you're not tied to one place. You have options and you'll always get the fastest table. Oh wow, that's pretty clever, he answered genuinely. It was called Fate List, I replied with a smirk. Like wait list, but you're putting it all in the hands of fate. Very clever. Thanks. The name was my idea. And then? He asked, sensing there had to be more to the story. Well, my friend and I, Eric is his name, we started running with the idea. Late night brainstorming sessions, internet research, mapping out business plans, the whole deal. We were really juiced up, I explained. Then we started moving out of the dream phase and into the reality phase. It was coming alive. That came with a lot of hard decisions. As I thought back, I noticed how much I disliked reflecting on this time period. I don't know if I ever really shared this with anyone. Even when it comes up in my own head, I usually just shove it down and put it out of my mind. Then one day, Eric came to me and told me he was quitting his job to go all in on Fate List, and he encouraged me to do the same. How did you respond? Alakoa asked curiously. Not well, I answered. I couldn't do it. I was too afraid. Afraid of what? I don't know. Of failing, I guess. I had a good job, steady paycheck, 401k. I would have been crazy to just walk away from all that to take a chance on some crazy app idea. So what did you do? I backed out. I told him I couldn't commit. So he went on without me. And is he still working on it? He was. Till about a year and a half later, he got acquired by one of the biggest table reservation apps in the world. I answered, without trying to hide my disappointed feelings about it. He had a huge payout and executive position in the company. You have some regrets, it seems, Alakoa said. Yes, I replied. I kicked myself over it, you know? I was too afraid to take a chance. It was too big of a leap for me. And like always, I bitched out. Well, what did you take away from it? What did you learn? I paused for a moment, not sure how much more I wanted to open up about my feelings towards the whole Fate List situation, but I decided I felt comfortable enough to give a little more. I guess I learned what really excites me. When I was dreaming about Fate List, I felt alive. I had drive. I had purpose. It was like I was tapped into something bigger than myself. It's been 2 years now since I backed out of the project, and I guess I'm just missing that. That's all. I want to get it back. I see, said Alakoa. But that was all. I was expecting some kind of nugget of wisdom or guidance, but nothing. I could see him thinking, sort of taking it all in. Finally, he broke the silence. I trust you will find this again. Stay open to opportunities, and stay true to yourself. And most of all, be patient. Okay, I guess that was somewhat encouraging. I thanked him and looked down at the plates. We had both finished our food at this point. I'll clean this up, then why don't we sit out back for a few minutes and settle? Then we'll take a walk down to the playa. You can meet some of the community and see the town. Sounds like a plan, I replied as I slowly stood up and tried to get the blood flowing to my numb legs and stiff back. Alakoa hopped up gracefully and made his way to the kitchen. I walked out towards the back. It was hard to say exactly where the house ended and the back deck began. This area of the house was completely open to natural air, and the gentle breeze circulated through the entire house. It was becoming a bit cooler, but it was still very comfortable. I walked out to the edge of the balcony and looked over the hillside. Even in the dark, I could tell there was a great view of the mountain valley down below. I was envisioning how beautiful it must look in the daylight when I heard Alakoa down in the yard underneath the deck. There are stairs over to the right, he called up to me. I looked down and saw him in a cleared-out area of yard space below the deck. I made my way down a spiral staircase that opened up into a carefully landscaped area. It wasn't huge, but it was clearly an important part of the property. It was manicured and decorated with great detail. I noticed right away. We stepped out into a little clearing that had at least a dozen or so fairly large stones laid out in the shape of a circle, with smaller stones running lines through the middle, separating the circle into sections. "What's this?" I asked as I observed the arrangement of the stones. "It's my medicine wheel," he replied. I wasn't sure what a medicine wheel was, but I replied with a, "Ah, gotcha," as if I did. We each sat on a rock. I felt very relaxed still, and I was just enjoying a few deep breaths, listening to the sounds of the insects and the birds in the background. After a few moments, I broke the silence with a very strong understatement. "I have some questions about this project. Some concerns, too." He laughed a little. "I'm sure you do. You're out of your comfort zone. I'd be shocked if you didn't have some Why is it so important?" I blurted out before he could finish, as if the question had been bottling up for a while. "Why is this project so important to you and the Okablaya people? I just don't get it. I thought I was coming here for some transformation and spiritual growth and all that stuff I hear people talk about on podcasts. I don't understand why it would really matter to anyone else but me. To be very clear, I need you to know that I cannot answer too many questions right now. I have to honor the process of your experience and education here.
Remember, everything we do this week, and more so everything taught in Shift, will follow a very specific order and sequence.
This sequence is vital in your understanding of the Okablaya culture, the mission of this project, and the way of the code." Code? What code? This is the first I'm hearing of a code, I thought to myself, but I ignored it for the time being. I was too caught up in all the secrecy. "Why is the sequence so important? Are you brainwashing us or something?" "No," he answered firmly. "It's actually like the opposite. More like a brain unwashing. And if it's not done carefully, it could be traumatic." "Traumatic? How?" I answered, growing a bit concerned. "People hold on to their beliefs very strongly, Garrett. Many don't know how they even began believing what they do. They've just always known these things to be true." Again, using air quotes around the word known. "It's how they see the world. It's who they are," he continued. "When those things are brought into question and they are offered new ideas that either make more sense or disprove their beliefs, it can be too overwhelming for some." "Whoa, okay, now I'm a little nervous," I said half jokingly. "There's no need to be nervous. As long as you're here seeking truth and are able to accept that you may have misunderstood things in the past, you'll be okay. Not everyone can do this, but I'm confident that you can." "Thanks. I think I can too," I replied. "But are you saying some people can't? So what happens? Do they have like a psychotic break or something?" He laughed out loud. No, nothing like that. They usually just go home at the end of the week and they put this place out of their minds as quickly as possible. Like I said to you in the car, about a third won't make it to Shift." "And what about the ones that do make it to Shift? How many of them finish the schooling? And what happens from there?"
"You know I can't answer that right now," he replied. "What I can tell you is that there is a very specific protocol that we've run about 1,000 people through since its inception, and it's really powerful. It's incredibly challenging, but it works." "What does SHIFT stand for again?" I asked. "School of Higher Intelligence and Personal Health Transformation," he replied. "It's considered a rite of passage by the Okablaya people. If you make it through, you're one of us." He looked directly at me as he said this.
"Okay, so if I make it through, are they going to want me to live here forever?" I asked. "No, quite the opposite. If you make it through, you've proven you're ready to return home and begin living by the code." There it was again, the word, the code. "You keep saying that. What's this code you keep mentioning?" I asked inquisitively. He turned towards me and looked me right in the eyes. "The Primordial Code," he answered boldly, with a deep resonance. "If you complete your journey here, you will be recognized as a keeper of the code." "The Primordial Code?" I answered. "I've never heard of it before. What is it?" "Ha," he said with a big smile. "That's not so simple of an answer, my friend. It's that exact question humans have been asking since the creation of man." "Well, what does it mean, primordial?" I asked. I was taken over by the mystery of it. "Primordial means it predates human existence. Some say it predates the existence of all life on Earth. The word primordial indicates that it's timeless, infinite," he added. "The Okablaya people have always honored the code. It's how we live. It's who we are." predates mankind. Is that possible? How can a written down code not be created by man? I pressed. It's not written down. In fact, it doesn't actually exist in the physical form in any way. No way to read it, write it, and most importantly, no way to control it or destroy it, he replied. I'm not sure if I'm following. How can everyone abide by a code that's not written down? How do you know if you're living by the code or not? How do you know if what you're doing is right? You always know, he replied. Your heart tells you, your mind tells you, and your body tells you. Actually, it's that deep knowing in itself that is the code. You see? Okay, I kind of get it, I think, I replied with very little confidence. Hold on, let me start over. I'll give you a simple overview, he continued. See, the Okablaya people are an ancient blood, rich in wisdom and tradition. It's our sacred ways that allow us to live how no other civilization can. The original Okablaya people are of these native lands, of the Americas, a people of the land, the elements, the soil, the earth, a people connected to our mother, Pachamama. The code is delivered directly through her endless beauty and infinite wisdom. As we connect to the flow of this divine energy, the code reveals itself to each and every one of us. You with me so far? I think so, I answered. He paused for a moment. I could sense the importance of this to him. But there's something different about Okablaya, he said boldly and clearly. Something never before seen in human history. Never before has there been a culture so rich in ancient tradition, yet still so open to new ideas. So open to other ways of thinking and being, he continued. Okablaya was founded on the idea of honoring our heritage, yet also exploring the possibilities of expanded collaboration. Our ancestors honored their traditions deeply, but as the human species began its next stage of development into the technological age, they remained open to learn other ways of accessing the code through man-made technology. How do you access the code through technology? I asked. Well, to be more accurate, you don't actually access the code through the tech. What you do is access other people through the tech. Other people, other philosophies, other traditions. You can access more today than ever before. So why wouldn't we? Modern Okablaya is a place in which many paths to the code are recognized, he finished. So kind of like a melting pot of belief systems, I asked. Sort of, he responded. Melting pot would make it seem a little more messy and chaotic, when that's not the case at all. See, it's not just anything goes. Not everything is accepted. Not all new ideas elevate our species. Not all advancements actually move us forward. Okablaya blood is half Native American and half European, he explained. And although we live much closer to the ways of our indigenous ancestors, we've integrated quite a bit of European influence in the past few hundred years. Only that is true to the code, of course. Anyone who has ever attempted to enter our land with off-code beliefs and actions was not tolerated. How do you know when something's off-code? I asked. It's easy. It's like listening to an orchestra that's off-key. You know right away. It's either in harmony or it's not. You can't mistake it. So when people come in pushing their beliefs as superior to everyone else's, or searching for power over others, or claiming to have some kind of key that no one else has access to, you can sense it immediately. It's impure. You can't mistake it. Has that happened? All the time, he answered right back. We've faced countless people throughout our history, time and time again, selling us their new and better ways of living. The right answer, the real truth, he emphasized with air quotes. Has anyone ever come in with anything good to offer? I asked. As a matter of fact, yeah, more than you would think, he replied. See, that's just the thing. The Okablaya people are always open. We always listen. And even in the cases in which the influences were not pure, there's still something to be learned. Always something to be gained. Everyone is a teacher. So although we've respectfully declined all institutional powers that have tried to control our people, we have still learned from many of their people along the way. Make sense? Yeah, it does, I replied. So you've basically evolved your traditions as the world has evolved. Is that right? Pretty much. We've never abandoned our sacred traditions, but we've expanded them. We learn from great teachers and great lessons from all other ancient cultures and traditions. Of course, our native principles are still the core of our society, but But what you'll find here has influences from all over the earth. The Egyptians, the Stoics, the Greeks, the Christians, the Buddhists, the Muslims. The list is endless. If it's harmonious, it naturally finds a seat in the symphony. Wow, that's amazing, I responded. I've never heard of a political party or a religious institution that didn't outwardly reject all other belief systems. I kind of thought you had to reject other beliefs in order to honor yours.
A lot of people think that, but honestly, it's pretty ridiculous. In a world in which all information is now accessible, why would we not continue to learn and grow as much as possible? He continued. We use modern information methods to learn more broadly, continually tapping into the most universal beliefs. We like to say, we are students of all traditions, but slaves to none.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But one thing I'm not sure about, I followed up. Just one? Wow, he said sarcastically. Okay, maybe more than one. But seriously, if the Primordial Code is an ancient intelligence, how does it apply to our modern world? Most ancient belief systems have been disproven by modern science by now. Well, first off, I strongly suggest you don't accept that notion without a lot more study. Secondly, when I use that word ancient, it's not the way you're used to using it. Ancient, in this case, doesn't mean old. It means infinite. Do you know what infinite means? He asked. Yeah, infinite means there's no end, I answered confidently. And no beginning. He shot right back. No end and no beginning. That means timeless. In other words, beyond the concept of time. It's never not been there. This intelligence is universal to all beings, in all places, at all times. All beings, in all places, at all times. I repeated back softly to myself as I let it sink in. We have always had and always will have every answer we need right inside of us. The answers we need as individuals and as a collective. These answers, Garrett, are the Primordial Code. Okay, wow, so this code is kind of a big deal, I responded with a hint of sarcasm. All I could seem to do was crack a joke. I was a bit overwhelmed by all this information and the intensity coming from Alakoa. He didn't laugh, so I quickly tried to spit out another question to keep the conversation going. So the Okablaya people are able to access this code? Everyone can. In fact, the first key to living by the code is accepting that all people, no matter what race, age, gender, color, financial status, no matter what, all have the wisdom of the code embedded into their soul. Complete equality. Okay, I can accept that, I replied. The Primordial Code is like an inner compass, always guiding and leading us. And what's very important to understand is that all humans are guided to the same underlying answers. That means no matter where they're from, what language they speak, what religion they practice, their political stance, or their level of education. Every single person on earth, when they tap into their deepest being, is able to find their way towards things like compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, acceptance, and love. Whenever someone truly gets to the answers, they're always the same. He took a breath and sat back for a second. Then he leaned in closer and looked right at me. And we can do this needing nothing more than the body, mind, and soul we are born with, he concluded. The Primordial Code, I thought to myself. So this is why I'm here. Suddenly, my whole perspective on this trip had changed. I felt something shift inside. I stopped being so concerned with these minor details of the trip and was starting to recognize that I was about to enter into something important, something big. I felt a charge up my spine, a shot of adrenaline. It was like I was being recruited onto an important mission, far more important than what I thought I was coming here for. I was scared, but in a good way. And even though it was all new to me, I felt ready. I couldn't help but be inspired by Alakoa. He was like the ultimate man, but not like a macho tough guy or something. He was poised, intelligent, strong, confident in his stances. He was humble but proud, powerful but gentle, noble even. Hearing him speak about the code and the Okablaya people lit a spark inside of me. He was the type of guy you wanted to get behind, wanted to be on the same team as. We both just sat and stared off towards the forest. The sound of the birds, the insects, and the breeze surrounded us. After a few moments, I chimed in. So after shift school, I'm supposed to go back home and bring the code to others? I asked. You know I can't answer that, he replied quickly, without even turning towards me. But I'm on the right track, I asked with a playful smirk. Sort of. Generally. But it's not that simple. There's more to it. Why are you so concerned with the outside world? I asked. If things in Okablaya are good, then why not just leave everyone else alone? Like I told you, the world is on a precipice, and the future of humanity is currently in the hands of people who have lost connection to the source long ago. Multiple generations, hundreds of years of separation. Generations of people thinking, speaking, acting, and interacting from an impure energy source. Living without the guidance, without the compass. And it has led us here, the verge of extinction, he stated with an obvious sense of concern. You think this project can help? I asked. You think it can make a difference? It already is, he replied with confidence. Delphinius has been running for over a decade, and the ripple is immeasurable. There are dolphins doing more to raise the consciousness of humanity than anyone else in modern history. He paused, and then continued. The awakening that you're seeing in the world right now is not just some coincidence. I mean, it was going to happen anyway. There's no choice but for the collective to rise. But this project has accelerated it tremendously. So you mean there's dolphins out there right now? How come I've never seen any of them? I asked. You have, he replied. You don't know it because they're operating in secret, but you've seen them. How could you be so sure? I said. I'm your mentor. I studied your profile very closely, he answered. Some of those podcasts you've started listening to, those YouTube videos you've been watching, those Instagram accounts you follow, many of those peewees are dolphins. Wait, hold on. What's a peewee? I asked. PWI stands for person with influence, Alakoa replied. We've run several well-known peewees through this program, and a few other graduates ended up becoming influential after they returned home. Really? I answered. I was shocked by this. How could all this be happening without anyone knowing? And how did I somehow end up involved in all of this? Why me? Yes, really, he replied. See, Garrett, one of the reasons you're here is because of your intuitive pull to previous participants in the project. And because of that, I know that you know there's something in this world that just isn't right. You can feel it. In fact, I'm betting it's getting to a point where you can't ignore it. Would you agree? I paused for a moment. I was a little uncomfortable with how well he knew me, but he was spot on. In the last year or so, I've been living with this overwhelming sense that something is off in this world. I could never tell if it was just me feeling down or something bigger than me that just seemed out of whack. I could never seem to put my finger on it, and I never talk about it with anyone, but the feeling is always there. And now that we're talking about it, I guess it's what's been pushing me to open myself up more, to try new things, to stop being so close-minded and explore new options. Yeah, I would agree, I answered. Something doesn't feel right, and it's getting hard to ignore. The keepers of the code have been pulling you in. Not by force, not by promising you anything, just by being. Their thoughts, words, and actions are aligned with the divine, and they naturally attract others who are seeking truth. And now somehow a regular guy like myself is going to learn this code, go back home, and save the world? I asked. I have to be honest, that seems absolutely ridiculous. I don't have any kind of influence or power. I'm as average as it gets. It may seem ridiculous right now, was his response. Be patient, Garrett. Okay, I answered. It's just that the people I know back home, they won't go for this kind of stuff. They're so stuck in their ways. It may seem that way, but they're just confused right now, he answered. Confused, I followed. Confused about what? The Western world is complicated, he answered. Mainly because people look outside of themselves for all their answers, and the information they get is conflicted and corrupt. So at the end of the day, they default to putting their trust in the people in charge. They look to the people with power. They trust the systems in place. And even if they don't agree with it all, they don't think there's anything they can actually do to change it. So they're confused because the people in charge are supposed to know what's best, but somehow the world is still falling apart. Is that what you're saying? I asked. Yeah, partially. And people rely on these powers and their laws to be their moral compass. They get their lines crossed between legality and morality. This creates a society of people stuck in a state of inner conflict, unable to differentiate right from wrong, disabling them from uniting and working together. It's the wrong code. Alakoa stood up and began pacing back and forth as he spoke to me. You see, they try to create this moral code of right and wrong, good and bad, and it's riddled with corruption and inconsistencies. Anyone who tries to find the light by following these leaders will only end up in a place of inner conflict and confusion. Whether or not they are conscious of this inner turmoil is another story, but it affects their life on every level. I guess I see what you're saying, but it seems like most people have the morals part down, you know? I mean, obviously there are some bad apples, the criminals, the drug dealers, the murderers, but the majority of everyone else are actually good people. They get up every morning, they go to work, they do their job, they follow the rules, and keep the machine turning. He cut me off. They do what they're told is right. They stick to the script. And then, when they look at the world around them, they say things like, "What a messed up world," or "The world is a crazy place," or "This country is falling apart." And they never once stop to recognize their role in all of it. They think the problems exist outside of them. Like I said, they're confused. Everyone is confused because they are living by the wrong code. Okay, give me one example, because I'm not really seeing what's so confusing, I responded. Well, I think taxes are an easy one to start with, he replied. It's confusing to people why it's not okay to take money out of someone's pocket, but it's perfectly okay to take it out of someone's paycheck. This creates massive confusion around the idea of theft, personal property, and political power. What's confusing about that? I responded. Taxes are not the same thing as taking money. Income taxes are a small price to pay for living in a free society. And I'd argue if someone can just take money from you, then you're not actually free. Am I right? He asked. No, you're not right. Income taxes are a necessary part of a civilized nation. We don't have income tax, he replied with a shrug, and then he began to count out loud. 1 Okablaya, 2 Okablaya, 3 Okablaya. He kept going. I had no idea what he was counting for, but I could hardly pay attention. No income taxes? How was that possible? What about roads? I exclaimed. 7 Okablaya, he said out loud. That's a new record, I think. New record for what? Fastest person to say the line. What line? What about roads? He answered. It's an important line of empirical code programmed into Americans from an early age. Everyone says it when they hear we don't have income tax. Empirical code? I said, a little bewildered. Yeah, you said another one earlier. Income taxes are a small price to pay for living in a free society, he repeated in a slightly mocking tone. Empirical code are the conditioned thoughts and beliefs that are deeply embedded into the subconscious mind of modern humans. They are planted there by people who wish to control you and everyone else. Oh shit. Don't tell me he's a conspiracy theorist. I may have just found my reason not to like him. You don't have any conscious recollection of where you first heard them, or why you even believe these thoughts. They've just always been there. Because of this, people don't question them. They'll tell you it's just common sense, but have no real basis of support. For example, if I asked you any follow-up questions about the topic, it would become clear very quickly that you really have no idea how your tax money is spent, or that the federal income tax doesn't even actually pay for roads. You'd likely start to fumble around and get all defensive, right? I didn't answer, but he was right. I really don't know how the roads are paid for. Yet, nevertheless, these lines are regurgitated day after day and passed on from generation to generation without anyone bothering to really question them. And to be honest, the topic of taxes is barely scratching the surface. It goes much deeper than that. I didn't respond at first. Did he really think people were planting lines of code in us? This was starting to sound like the Matrix. So, no taxes. Was all I could say. No income taxes, he corrected me. We have other ways of collectively funding the things we need without violating the laws of nature. Laws of nature? I replied. I don't follow. What do taxes have to do with nature? It's not really about the taxes themselves. It's about the interaction between the people involved. The laws of voluntary human exchange are as natural as the laws of physics or the laws of chemistry. When an exchange between two humans is unrestricted and unobstructed, it will unfold naturally. But if these laws are violated with overpowering force or restriction, it will ultimately lead to unnatural or imbalanced outcomes within the ecosystem. Exhibit A, a few 100 million pissed off people who want to stick it to the man any chance they get. This imbalance in the collective consciousness is simply a result of natural human rights being violated. He said this as if it was extremely obvious, but I had never really thought about it like that. But let's drop the taxes talk for now. I'm already getting ahead of the sequence. There will be a lot more time for talking about taxes later on. Okay, so what's another example then? I asked. Well, you mentioned murderers, right? That's probably actually a better place to start, he answered. So let me ask you, why are some people in America thrown in jail for murder while others are rewarded for it? Rewarded? I exclaimed. Dude, I don't know what kind of info you're getting over here, but no one is rewarded for murder. I saw a movie once about an American hero, he answered without hesitation. He was awarded the Silver Star and 3 Bronze Stars. The biggest factor in him receiving these awards were his 150 confirmed kills. Oh, come on, I said in disbelief. That's not the same thing as murder. Confirmed kills. Am I misunderstanding the term? As far as I'm aware, kill is another word for murder. I didn't answer right away. I felt myself getting a little worked up. It was like he was toying with me. Suddenly, Alakoa was becoming much less likable. Yes, Alakoa, they mean the same thing. Let's not get silly. They're referring to war, which is a very different set of circumstances. So if you murder someone you don't like, you're a despicable disgrace and thrown in jail the rest of your life. But if you murder someone the government doesn't like, you're a hero. Is that right? Not exactly, I responded. Oh, right. Not a hero until you kill a lot of them, he said, clearly being sarcastic now. Do you see why this is confusing from a moral standpoint? People are trying to live by a code of ethics that's so inconsistent. Yes, there are differences in the two situations, but the difference between being a prisoner and a national hero is as extreme as it gets. War is different, I shot back. Can you not see that? He's a hero because he killed bad guys. Who decided they were the bad guys and deserved to die, was his response. The government officials. They have ways of knowing who the enemy is. And then they pay others to go kill them, he asked. I didn't answer. I was getting a little fed up with the sarcasm. You know the funny thing about war, he asked. I didn't answer, but he continued anyway. The funny thing about war is that in war, both sides actually think they are the good guys. You know? He was right. I didn't have much to say. You know, the United States has been a country for 243 years. Out of the 243 years, it's been at war for 225 of them. Does that seem like a lot to you? He asked. Kind of, I guess, I answered. Do you think the U.S. has been the good guys in all of those wars? I didn't like the feeling of this conversation. I don't know what he was trying to prove, but I felt myself getting angry. As a matter of fact, I do, I said proudly. We're the goddamn United States of America. We're the greatest country in the world. Empirical code, was all he said. That's not code, that's just a fact, I replied back. I wasn't going to let him just shit all over my country without being a good patriot and standing up for what's right. The greatest country in the world? He asked. According to who? According to anyone you ask. Everybody knows we are the greatest country in the world. We have everything. We are the leaders of the free world. We're a superpower, I responded boldly. Is power how you measure greatness? He replied. Yeah, actually, I spit back. It's one of the ways, at least. At this point, I felt like I was losing a debate, even though I knew I was right. I knew what I believed was true. I just couldn't seem to explain it well. Finally, I snapped. Listen, man, I don't know what kind of hippie snowflake anti-war bullshit you guys believe in over here, but I'm not going to sit here and let you rip apart my country. We are the U.S. of fucking A. And yes, we are the greatest nation in the world. Everyone on Earth outside of this little island knows it. Gotcha, he said. So if I asked someone from Russia what the greatest country in the world was, what would they say? Well, Russia doesn't count. They're brainwashed fucking commies. They're not allowed to think anyone else but Mother Russia is any good. Oh, they're brainwashed to believe their country is the best. I see. He continued pacing back and forth. What about Italy? What if I asked someone from Italy? Would they say U.S. is the greatest nation in the world? After a pause, I replied with an unresounding, I guess not. What about Ireland, or Germany, or Brazil? Do they think their homeland is inferior to the United States? When I see their soccer stadiums filled on game day, they seem to think their countries are pretty great. Do they all secretly wish they lived in the U.S.? He pressed me. I felt like he was stomping on me. I didn't like it. All right, dude, I get it. We're not perfect, okay? Is that what you wanted to hear? No, not at all, he replied. All I was doing was helping you see why everyone is so morally disoriented. In a world with such extreme double standards as that, it's impossible for anyone to feel firm and confident in their values. His voice picked up in volume. There are these sets of rules that are supposed to help you know right from wrong, but then there are these major exceptions to the rules for some people, like we just said. And then it gets even more puzzling when you begin to realize the exceptions to these rules are only for the people who also happen to make the rules. You see? I mean, if things as cut and dry as theft and murder have moral confusion around them, can you imagine how many thousands of less extreme examples of double standards exist in your society? Can you imagine how confusing that is for people? That's the point I was making. If you remember, all I asked was, can you see how it's confusing? Okay, yes, I can. It's confusing. Happy? I answered. Okay, hang on. This is really important. Do you see what just happened? I looked up at him as he walked by and just shook my head. I didn't know what he meant. You got worked up and completely lost sight of the point. You defaulted to your most basic programming. You took the stance of, I know I'm right, with nothing to back it up other than the fact that you've always believed it and everyone around you does too. Then, you let the emotional charge take over your rational mind, and you completely shut down to the opposing viewpoint. You are more concerned about being right than getting to the truth. This is how your culture operates, and it's a big reason why the world is in the state that it's in. It's also the biggest reason people don't last here. Do you understand? Yeah, I guess, I answered, still a little irritated. It's just that I have some family and friends that served in the military. They're good people. I'm sure they are, he answered, which only adds to the confusion. You see? Not really, I answered. The layering is so deep that 99% of people would never dare question it because it could bring their character into question. He explained. If you went home and asked the same questions I just asked you, you'd be attacked, called names, and outcasted by the people who consider themselves and their family noble patriots. He continued. It's not about whether or not they're a good person. It's about the fear of knowing you might not be the good guys and that you all might be playing a role in the evil system. Look, I get it, I responded before taking a moment of silence. You make good points, but I really don't think it was necessary for you to come at me like that, I said. Garrett, I didn't come after you at all. I just asked questions. If you find this type of conversation difficult, you're going to have a really hard time here. His tone changed back to something more compassionate, like a father talking to his son, and he sat back down next to me. Topics like this are not easy to talk about. It's why people choose to just believe what's easy. I'm not saying your friends and family are bad people or that the actual soldiers are the problem, okay? In fact, war often brings out immense strength and beauty in people. This is not about disrespecting the ones who are willing to fight for what they believe in and die for what they think is right. Not one bit. This is about exposing the moral inconsistencies in your subconscious programming that keeps you lost, confused, and disempowered. Do you understand? I just nodded. I now understood why some people quit. Listen, Garrett, in Okablaya, you have to be prepared to be challenged, to be asked hard questions about your beliefs. You have to be ready to stand for what you believe in and explain to people why you believe these things. This level of honesty and radical ownership is what allows our society to thrive. And I'll tell you, if you start getting defensive and rattling off baseless lines of code you heard on Fox News, you're going to get eaten alive at shift school. Okay, no, I'm good. I'm ready, I replied, feeling like the confrontation was subsiding. Oh, one last thing, he started. I actually love how you stood up for your homeland, he said with conviction. This is important, especially in times of conflict. I have an undying loyalty to Okablaya, and I always will. But not because they told me in school that I had to, or because all my friends do too. I'm not trying to rinse your patriotism out of you. I'd just like to see it rooted in something more significant than just the fact that you live there. Well, what would that be? You basically just shat all over everything we stand for, I replied. I didn't do that, but maybe you just have to look a little harder to find the beauty. Maybe it's not as easy to spot, but I'm sure it's there. And what if it's not? I asked. Then you have to create it, he replied, once again as if it was obvious. Whenever you can't see the beauty, you just know you have to create it yourself. I just sat for a second and took a few breaths. Being here with Alakoa was intense. I could tell this wasn't going to be the last time he challenged me. You ready to take a walk down to the playa for the bonfire? He asked excitedly. Yeah, definitely. Let's do it, I responded. We hopped up off the stones and headed towards the road. The walk started down a nicely groomed hiking trail. It was getting dark, but we could still see okay for the time being. After about 10 minutes, we opened up into some kind of park. A big open space that had some solar panel lampposts lighting the way. As we cut through the park, we saw more people walking, biking, and sitting along the solar lamp-lit walks. As we exited the far side of the park, we stepped onto a road. We seemed to be entering some sort of town square type area. The road was closed off to cars, but there was lots of people walking and biking around. It looked like most shops were closed, but the town was still full of life. As we walked down the road towards the beach, I could feel an electricity buzzing through the air. There was an energy that just felt good. As we got closer to the beach, the more people I saw. I wouldn't say it was crowded, but people were definitely turning out for this bonfire, and you could sense their excitement about the big event. I could see the beach in the distance. There was a large group of people, maybe a few hundred, and in the center, I could see the glow from the fire. As we approached, the sound of drumming was growing louder and louder. At first, I thought it was a DJ on a sound system, but then I could see there was actually a drum circle around the fire with a handful of people wailing away, creating an amazing beat. The drummers were surrounded by people dancing wildly and shaking their bodies to the beat. The energy was contagious. I was already starting to bob my head as I looked around at the spectacle of people. As we got onto the beach, I noticed lots of people dressed in festive clothing, many with crystal jewelry and tribal body art. It seems like this festival attracted the free-spirited types in the community, and I have to admit, I'd never been more inclined to take off my shirt and flail around like a wild man. The only thing stopping me was my pale, soft belly. Everyone here seemed so fit and tan and just healthy. I'd never seen so many beautiful people in one place, and it all looked so easy to them, so natural. I'm sure I stood out like a sore thumb, but even with my insecurities, I was still comfortable. It was such an open place. Everyone seemed so relaxed and happy. Everyone could see I wasn't from around here, but not one negative or judgmental glance. Just smiles and nods as we walked through the crowd towards the fire. When we got to the fire, I paused and looked around, taking a moment to reflect. A month ago, I was home in Ohio just minding my own business, taking it one day at a time. You know, the typical stuff. And now here I was, in a beautiful foreign land, like some kind of tropical paradise, surrounded by beautiful, happy people, and I just so happened to be in town in time for whatever festival this was. I just felt like things were finally opening up for me. It was like luck was on my side, for once. Koa! I heard someone shouting as he walked towards us. Heyo, my brother, Alakoa answered as he hugged his friend. Garrett, this is Heyoka, my friend I was telling you about. Nice to meet you, I said as I stuck out my hand for a shake. He grabbed my hand and shook it firmly, then pulled me in close for a hug just like the one Alakoa gave me in the airport. Left ear to left ear, with a big deep breath in and out before letting me go. So great to meet you, Garrett, he said as he pulled back and looked me in the eyes. Alakoa has told me about you. I'm excited you are finally here. Oh, wow, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited too, I replied, not expecting him to have known about me. Why don't you two take a hike over to my place tomorrow, and we'll break fast together, he said to the two of us. Sounds great, Alakoa replied. We'll be there. Heyoka walked down towards the water, and I turned my attention back towards the fire and drums. I couldn't help but get caught in the beat. I wasn't particularly known for having rhythm, I didn't normally dance unless I was wildly intoxicated. But for some reason, I wasn't too concerned. I felt loose. The energy was ecstatic. People dancing, stomping, twirling, whistling, hooting, and hollering to the rhythm of the drum beat. And the drummers were easily the best I've ever heard. I saw some people twirling fire and some spinning large hoops. A little further down, there was a well-lighted playground that was designed for adults and kids, and I saw people swinging on rings and balancing on beams. There were kids all over, some dancing, some on the playground, others running around chasing each other and laughing. On the other side was another lighted area. In here, there were a few different games of pickup sand soccer being played and a half dozen volleyball courts, all at full capacity. Up on the boardwalk, there was a long row of tables filled with fresh fruit, all different types of melons and berries and things I had never seen before. People were just walking up and taking some. It was all free from what I could see. It was like a giant field day meets dance party music festival. Not usually my type of scene, but honestly, it was pure awesomeness. There was no other way to explain it. I was completely swept away by the vibe. As I looked around, though, I suddenly noticed a few things that seemed a little odd. The first thing that stood out was the absence of alcohol. I mean, some people had a drink in their hand or a water bottle, but I didn't know if it was alcohol. Either way, there were no beer vendors, and I didn't see anyone who was visibly intoxicated. I did get a few whiffs of marijuana pass through, but that's about it. I also didn't see any type of typical festival things like tents, trucks, security, or people selling stuff. I couldn't really tell who was running this thing. Regardless, I was happy to have been here during the festival. It was a pretty cool experience so far. "This is pretty cool," I yelled to Alakoa over the sound of the drums. "Isn't it?" he shouted back. "What's the meaning behind it?" I asked. "Why are we celebrating?" "It's just a celebration of life," he responded. "Why not celebrate, you know?" "I hear you, but why this week? What's the occasion? Is it because I'm in town?" I asked jokingly. He laughed before responding. "This is what we do every week, my friend. Once the town closes down on Saturday, the drums, food, and fire come out. It's a chance for us all to come together and share the beauty of this land and each other and celebrate the closing of the week." "Well, it's definitely a cool way to let off steam," I replied, still having to yell a little bit over the music. "I didn't really expect there to be much of a party scene here." "This is a different type of party, Garrett. Not like what you're used to back home," he stated. "In Okablaya, celebration is a way to honor the body, not abuse it. It's a chance to give back, to nourish, and give thanks to the body for all that it does for us. It's a time to revitalize our energy with deep connection and physical expression. This ritual is sacred to our people." "So you come down here every Saturday?" "Just about. The only reason I ever miss it is if I'm out of town. And if I go more than 1 week without being here, I feel it." "Feel what?" I asked. "Just off," he replied. "My body, my mind, everything. I start to lose connection." I had to take a pause. This idea seemed crazy to me. Partying in a positive way? I didn't think that was even possible. I don't party as much as I used to, but in my experience, I never did any type of partying that made me feel good afterwards. The drumming quieted for a moment, and a loud cheer broke out from the crowd, acknowledging the drummers. Then, as if he was reading my mind, Alakoa continued the conversation. "It's tough for Americans to understand," he began as he turned towards me, talking in a more normal volume now. "In your world, celebration is used as an excuse to escape life. Here it's used to enhance life." More wisdom from Alakoa. I was starting to think I should be writing some of these things down. "In your culture, it is so common to be unfulfilled emotionally and spiritually in your day-to-day life that any type of party becomes a chance to numb the pain. And don't get me wrong, we all find ways to tune out the stresses of daily life for a while. That's part of this ceremony as well, and can be a beautiful thing if done properly. But when we abuse our body with toxic food and drinks, chemical substances, stay out late, and act out of alignment with our highest self, we are only adding to the burden of those everyday stresses, and in many cases, making things a lot worse. See, the root of the word celebration itself means to honor, to sing praise, to worship. And it also means frequently practiced. If someone we care about is stuck or struggling, it usually means they haven't been creating enough time for play or joy. In this case, we'll use various types of celebratory singing, dancing, and games to help them through the hard time. Seriously? I responded, shocked by the idea. Oh yeah. Bliss is a powerful medicine, my friend, he concluded. I didn't know what to say. It made sense. I was just dumbfounded by the notion of it all. The drums picked back up for another set as the crowd roared and immediately broke out into ecstatic dance. I started getting really into it, shaking my arms and legs fiercely to the rhythm. I could feel myself releasing the nervous energy that had been building up for the past few weeks. My body was becoming loose and flexible. I even felt like I was dancing much better than I usually did. Maybe I had some rhythm after all. I quickly pulled back the reins and toned it down a little as two women about my age approached us. Hey, Kaitiki, said Alakoa as he reached out and hugged one of the girls. She was definitely from Okablaya. She had long braided hair, delicate body art on her arms and belly, and very loose and flowy clothing that made it easy to see she had all the right curves in all the right places. She was vibrant and bubbly and, well, stunningly beautiful. She looked like some sort of indigenous goddess. This is Garrett, Alakoa said as he stepped away from her and turned towards me. I stuck out my hand, but she didn't even acknowledge it. She just pulled me in for an amazingly warm and loving hug. It was similar to the hugs I got from Alakoa and Heyoka, but it felt much more natural with her. She let out a long exhale before finally letting go. I'll be honest, I didn't want it to end. The other girl was clearly not from around here. Not that she wasn't a nice-looking girl, but, like me, she stood out. She seemed a bit stiff and uncomfortable, but still friendly and approachable. This is Sandra, Kaitiki said to me. She's here for Project Delphinius also. Oh, nice to meet you, I replied. It felt good to connect with someone else from the project. We shook hands in the more typical fashion. It was clear that she was not into the long hugs yet. I could tell she was equally as relieved to meet someone else from the project. Alakoa and Kaitiki started catching up, so Sandra and I turned and headed towards the fruit table. Interesting place, huh? I asked with a playful smile. I'll say, she replied. It's been quite an adjustment so far. I'm definitely out of my element. Yeah, I hear you. Nothing like I was expecting. I'm pretty confident I can make it through the week. But shift sounds tough, I said. Yeah, I don't know about shift. With work and everything, it's probably not going to be the right move for me. I'm really just here for the experience this week. I like to learn about different cultures. Oh yeah, work. Ugh, I said, suddenly being taken out of the present sense of enjoyment and reminded of the dullness of my work life back home. We'll see, I guess. I think it could be really good for me if I can make it happen. We each grabbed a few slices of pineapple off the table. Damn, it was sweet and juicy. The best I've ever tasted. We ate fruit and chatted for a few minutes. We exchanged quick rundowns of our experience so far and shared a few laughs about the absurdity of how we ended up here. She was a little quirky, but really friendly and outgoing. It was good to connect with her. Then Alakoa came up from behind. We better head home. We have a big week coming up. Let's go get some sleep. It wasn't very late, but I agreed, said goodbye to Sandra, and we started walking back. As we headed home, I could hear the drums fading in the distance, but my energy remained high. In just the last few hours, I've gone from scared to comfortable to excited. We walked in silence for a few minutes until Alakoa asked me a simple question that caught me off guard. Why are you here? Was all he said. What do you mean? I'm here for the project. Yes, I know, but why are you really here? He asked again, implying there was more to it. Anyone who makes it through the interview process and says yes to this project has something inside that's urging them. This is not a normal thing for a normal person living a normal life to do. I don't know. I'm just trying to open myself up to something new and different. I guess I've just been searching for something that excites me. A change in mindset. A challenge, maybe. Like I said, I've just been going through the motions. Ever since the excitement of Fateless faded, I've been back to blah. My work life has almost no variance, no excitement. So you're feeling a little unfulfilled, he responded. Yeah, for sure, I replied. I've just been feeling flat. What does flat feel like to you? What are the signs you're receiving? I don't know. I mean, I guess flat to me feels like the opposite of what I just felt like at the beach. We both laughed a little. Then I continued. I just feel kind of lazy, stagnant. I've been sleeping in too late. I haven't really been hitting the gym. At night, I'm just vegging on the couch, watching a lot of Netflix and scrolling social media. My nutrition has been pretty bad too. I'm trying to get back in gear, but just don't have the drive. Was all he replied. I'm even starting to gain weight, something I never had a problem with in the past. I feel soft and doughy. His response hit me hard. An overfed belly is the sign of an underfed soul, he said with sort of a wise man on the mountain type of tone. I definitely needed to start carrying a notebook. You feel empty, and you're trying to fill that emptiness with food and media and material things. Would you agree? Maybe. Yeah, I guess. You got a taste of the creator mindset, and now that you're back to the consumer mindset, you're feeling the difference. He was right. I never once thought of it that way, but he was spot on. Yeah, exactly, I answered. When I was working on Fateless, I was thriving. It was only a few months, but I felt something inside me light on fire. Suddenly, I got up every morning without an alarm. I was eating like a pro athlete, hitting the gym every day. I barely watched TV. I was even performing better at my job. Don't get me wrong, there were definitely times where I was doing too much and got a little burnt out. But damn, I felt alive. I see. Sounds like the things you were spending your time on added to your life more than they took away from it. You were generating your own creative energy. Yeah, definitely, I replied. Now it just seems like I have nothing fueling me. I originally thought this trip could be a good way for me to reset my mind and recharge my body. But I'm starting to get a feeling it could be a lot more than that. Possibly, he answered. But let's first start with resetting the mind and recharging the body like you originally wanted. You think you can help me do that? I asked. I do, and I'd be happy to. We arrived at the house. It was still only a little past 8, but he suggested we get right to bed. I walked up to my room and started unpacking the rest of my stuff when he came and gave a light knock on the door. As I turned around, he threw me a towel. Shower is right through that door. And remember, we're going to break fast with Heyoka tomorrow. Yeah, sounds great, I replied. Have a good night. You too, Garrett. Rest well. He turned and started heading down the hall. Oh, hey, one more thing, I called out. He walked back to the doorway. What's up? What about the code you were talking about? The Primordial Code? I asked anxiously. When am I going to learn it? You don't have to learn it, he replied. You already know it. I looked back at him for a moment, a little unsure of what he meant. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to teach you how to finally unlock it.
Sadak magi bugin jeng ko chega tu ze chor tor de she la yo kong kon son dum bell tu be da la